My designation is Keisha Wilson. I am 32 years of age, and my family has recently self-destructed. This unraveling occurred during my brother's homecoming celebration. After enduring years of quietly covering their financial obligations while being treated as an outsider, my mother finally vocalized her enduring sentiment: depart and never return. And so I did. What she was unaware of was that the residence she expelled me from was legally mine. Weeks subsequently, my father contacted me in a state of panic, inquiring why I had ceased remitting the mortgage payments. My response effectively silenced them entirely. Before I continue recounting this narrative, please inform me of your viewing location in the comments section below. Kindly indicate your approval and subscribe if you have ever been the sole individual responsible for maintaining your family's cohesion, only to be treated as if you possessed no value. The party was akin to a descent into inferno, or at least the suburban Atlanta manifestation of such an event. I had just disembarked from an artificial intelligence ethics summit held in San Francisco. Still attired in my charcoal grey business ensemble, my mind was actively processing algorithms and data frameworks. I entered my childhood dwelling, and the aroma of my mother's fried chicken with honey immediately assailed me. However, it no longer felt like a home. The residence was teeming with guests for my brother Jamal's welcome back festivities. He is 30 years of age and had just concluded what they referred to as a business research excursion to Bali. I was fully aware of who had financed that trip. It was me. The initial individual to greet me, regrettably, was Ashley, Jamal's spouse. Ashley is a remarkable individual. She is Caucasian, and since her marriage to Jamal, she has comported herself as if she were the chief executive officer of our black family's cultural heritage. She observed me, and her eyes, brimming with artificial sweetness, appraised my attire. "Keisha, my dear, you've arrived," she chirped, loud enough for all to overhear. "Oh, you're still in your work attire. The celebration commenced an hour ago. Everyone is in the rear garden. You must be utterly exhausted from, well, whatever it is you do with those computers." I manufactured a smile. "The AI summit extended its duration, Ashley. I am simply relieved to have returned promptly." "AI?" she repeated, elongating the syllable as if it possessed an unpleasant flavor. "It sounds so intricate. In any case, do make haste. Jamal is about to reveal his significant announcement." Her dismissive tone was a familiar pang. Within this family, my vocation as a senior data scientist was merely perceived as an perplexing, amateurish pastime. It lacked substance in their eyes, unlike Jamal's perpetual succession of unsuccessful entrepreneurial ventures. I was the pariah, the uninteresting one, the individual who inexplicably assumed responsibility for all expenditures. Jamal was the favored son, the visionary, the one who accumulated debts. I followed Ashley through the sliding glass portal onto the patio. The backyard was crowded. Aunts, uncles, and family associates were all congregated, engaged in laughter and precariously balancing paper plates. My father, Marcus, was positioned by the grill, expertly turning burgers with an expression of pride, while my mother, Sharon, orchestrated the movement around the potato salad. Jamal stood on the elevated platform, tapping a glass with a fork to command everyone's attention. "Ah, my esteemed assembly," he projected, his voice resonating with an unwarranted sense of self-importance. "May I have your attention, please?" Ashley swiftly joined him, gazing upward as if he were delivering a profound revelation. "Thank you all for gracing us with your presence." Jamal extended his arms expansively. "As you are aware, Ashley and I have recently returned from an extraordinary investigative journey, and we have identified our next groundbreaking endeavor." Instinctively, I retreated, finding a discreet position near the hibiscus shrubs. I anticipated precisely what was to unfold. This was the Jamal spectacle, and it invariably concluded with the same grand finale, the collection plate. "We are inaugurating a high-end digital art gallery," he declared. "We intend to harmonize our potent ancestral legacy with the technological advancements of the future. We are discussing digital art, blockchain, and a tribute to our collective heritage. It is revolutionary, and we shall be at its vanguard." My father emitted a hearty amen and offered applause. That's my boy, perpetually at the forefront of innovation. My mother, Sharon, clasped her hands over her heart. "Oh, Jamal, my darling, that sounds remarkably significant. I am exceedingly proud of you. What resources do you require to bring this to fruition, my son?" Jamal's smile widened. He had them ensnared. "Well, that's the most thrilling aspect, Mama. To secure prime gallery space and engage our exclusive artists, we require a modest initial investment, nothing substantial, merely $50,000 to initiate the enterprise." The atmosphere became hushed. $50,000. Even for this gathering, that represented substantial capital. Then, as if compelled by an unseen force, every individual in the backyard simultaneously turned their gaze directly towards me. I felt the intense, unwelcome sensation of a spotlight. I was the one with the technology-related profession, the one without children, the one who, in their estimation, possessed discretionary funds. My father was the first to break the silence, his voice casual, perhaps excessively so. "Well, now, Keisha, my dear," he began, gesturing with his spatula, "it sounds like your significant conference concluded favorably. I imagine that technology firm compensates you handsomely, does it not?" The trap was clearly laid. I inhaled deeply, a deliberate, measured breath, the sort one takes before confronting a final examination, or, as it transpired, before informing one's entire family of a refusal. I sensed my father's expectant stare, my mother's demanding one, and Jamal's self-entitled smirk. "Jamal," I commenced, my voice considerably more tranquil than I felt, "I am pleased that you are so enthusiastic about this novel undertaking." "Indeed," he interjected, puffing out his chest. "It's a paradigm shift, Kesh. You have the opportunity to get in on the ground floor. $50,000 is inconsequential given its trajectory." "I am certain it is," I replied, placing my untouched club soda on an adjacent table. "However, I regret to inform you that I will not be participating as an investor." The ambient music from the loudspeakers seemed to intensify, filling the sudden, profound silence. Jamal's smile faltered, then contorted into an expression of bewilderment. "What? What do you mean you won't? It's a guaranteed success." "Is it guaranteed in the same manner as your next-gen coin project was?" I inquired, maintaining my even tone. "Because I invested $30,000 in that venture, Jamal, which was 2 years ago. The revolution in decentralized finance that was purportedly to make us all wealthy. I have yet to see a single cent of that return." Jamal's countenance began to flush. That is a long-term investment, Keisha. You do not comprehend the cryptocurrency market." "And what about the luxury fashion line?" I continued, turning my attention to my parents. "The one preceding that, the drop-shipping empire I financed, the one that was intended to rival Gucci. I am still receiving irate customer emails via the website I paid to construct, inquiring about the whereabouts of their orders." "That was a supply chain disruption," Jamal interjected vehemently, advancing a step towards me. "Those are merely initial expenditures. That constitutes research and development. You fail to grasp the intricacies of business operations. One must be prepared to embrace risk to achieve significant success." He was shouting now, drawing the attention of everyone present even closer. His arrogance was astonishing. He exhibited no embarrassment. Rather, he was incensed that I had dared to question him. I observed him, then my father, and finally my mother, whose expression had already begun to darken with displeasure. "I comprehend risk perfectly, Jamal," I stated, my voice low and sharp, cutting through his bluster. However, the discernible pattern within this family appears to be that I am consistently the one who assumes all financial risk, while you are the recipient of all the experience. A collective indrawn breath swept across the patio. Ashley regarded me as if I had just slapped her. My father appeared astonished, not at Jamal's missteps, but at my brazenness in enumerating them, and my mother's eyes narrowed into slits. The true conflagration was yet to erupt. "Keisha," my mother's voice pierced the stunned silence. She slammed her plastic cup onto a patio table, causing sweet tea to splash onto the glass surface. Her eyes, which moments before had been suffused with adoration for Jamal, now blazed with fury. She strode towards me, abandoning her post by the food buffet. "How dare you?" she hissed, jabbing a finger in my direction. "How dare you stand in your father's house and address your brother in such a manner? He is endeavoring to build something. He is striving to forge a legacy for this family." "Build what, mother?" I retorted, my own voice escalating as my carefully constructed composure crumbled. "He is systematically depleting my resources while constructing a legacy. I am the one bearing the cost. That business research trip to Bali." I retrieved my mobile device, my hands trembling as I fumbled for an email. "Here," I declared, presenting the $5,000 credit card statement for the accommodation, airfare, and room service. It was dispatched to my email because it pertains to my account, the account I provided for emergencies. I thrust the screen of the device towards her. "You are all here, commending his foresight, while I am the one secretly financing his excursions." The crowd murmured. This was novel information. Jamal's complexion shifted to a shade of purple I had never before witnessed. That was a business expense, Keisha. You promised to support me." "I stated I would support a business venture, Jamal, not a fantasy. I am not financing this NFT folly. I am not providing you with another dollar." "The answer," I proclaimed, my voice ringing out clearly across the now silent yard, "is no." My mother appeared stunned. This was an unprecedented expression for her. Sharon Wilson was never at a loss for words. She was the orchestrator of every conversation, the arbiter of every familial narrative. And I, the quiet, academically inclined, dependable daughter, had just publicly defied her. She had anticipated my capitulation, my willingness to write the check and maintain domestic harmony. She had expected me to continue serving as their silent financial institution. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her gaze flickered to my father, who stood frozen, spatula suspended mid-air over the grill. You cannot simply refuse your family," she finally stammered. "I can," I stated, "and I am. This terminates all of it." "You stand here in my residence," she began again, regaining her composure, her voice escalating to a shriek. "You stand here consuming my food and you disparage your brother and your father." "Your residence, mother?" I inquired. The words escaped my lips before I could restrain them, uttered with a chilling quietude. "Are you entirely certain of that?" She appeared perplexed. "What are you alluding to?" "Of course it is my residence." I allowed a pregnant silence to hang in the air for a beat. I shifted my gaze past her towards my father, who had become entirely pallid. He recognized what was imminent. "Amusing," I remarked, my voice imbued with a dangerous calm. "Because I have been diligently remitting the mortgage payments for this dwelling for the past 3 years, ever since Dad's enterprise encountered significant difficulties and the bank was on the verge of foreclosure. The bank statements are under my name, Mother. The deed is also in my name. You are not standing in your house. You are standing in mine. The revelation hung in the atmosphere, thick and noxious. One could have heard a pin drop on the meticulously manicured lawn. Every guest, every aunt, every cousin remained frozen. Their smiles, evident during Jamal's announcement, had vanished, replaced by expressions of wide-eyed astonishment. Jamal and Ashley looked utterly bewildered, their glances alternating between me and my parents as they attempted to comprehend this unexpected development. However, my attention was fixed upon my parents. My father, Marcus, turned a shade of deathly white. He appeared as though he might be physically ill right there beside the grill. He opened his mouth, but no sound emerged. He understood the veracity of my assertion. He was the one who had affixed his signature to the relevant documentation. My mother, Sharon, however, presented a different tableau. She stared at me for a prolonged, agonizing second. I could discern her mental faculties processing the information, but she was not grappling with the truth of my statement. She was confronting the humiliation. I had just exposed her. I had just informed a gathering of her acquaintances and kin that she was not the matriarch of a prosperous household, but rather a lodger in her daughter's abode. Her countenance, which had previously displayed confusion, contorted into a mask of unadulterated fury, the kind of fury that obliterates all logic, all affection, all reason. "You are a fabrication," she hissed, the words delivered in a low, menacing tone. "How dare you?" "I am not fabricating, Mother," I responded, my voice trembling yet resolute. "Inquire of Dad. Inquire about the quitclaim deed. Inquire about the Q family trust. Consult the county records. All the evidence is documented." My father avoided her gaze, his attention fixed solely on a partially cooked burger on the grill. That was all the confirmation she required. The public mortification was complete, and she succumbed to a loss of control. "You ungrateful child!" she shrieked, advancing a step in my direction. "After all we have bestowed upon you, we granted you life, we nourished you, we financed that education which has rendered you so exceedingly proud. An education I funded myself, with my own scholarships," I countered. "You funded nothing. I am the one who provided the financial support." "I do not care," she shrieked, her voice faltering. "I do not care about any documents you believe you possess. I do not care about what you perceive you have paid for. This is my residence. This is the home I established. This is my family, and I shall not endure such degradation at your hands. Not from the difficult, unappreciative, intellectually inclined child you have perpetually been." Her face had darkened, nearly appearing black with rage, as if she was spitting. The guests were retreating, hastily gathering their children. "You sashay in here with your emotionless demeanor and your business attire, condescending to all of us, condescending to your brother, who possesses more heart and vision than you will ever comprehend. You presume you are superior to us simply because you possess wealth." "Mother, that is not— Depart!" The shriek was so potent it resonated off the neighboring dwellings. "Depart from my residence." "Mother, it is my residence." "I do not care. It is mine. It shall perpetually remain mine. You shall not wrest it from me. Depart. Depart, and never ever return." The animosity in her voice was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It was pure, unadulterated, and deeply unsettling. It transcended mere anger. It was imbued with venom. It was the sound of an individual who had been exposed and preferred to obliterate the evidence rather than acknowledge the truth. She pointed towards the street, her entire body trembling. "I am serious, Kesha. Depart, and do not ever, under any circumstances, return." My head snapped towards my father. He represented my final recourse, my steadfast anchor. Surely he would not permit this to transpire. He had always espoused logic, embraced reason. He was privy to the truth regarding the house. He had indeed signed the necessary documents. Dad, I implored, my voice barely a whisper. All my resolve had evaporated, supplanted by a desperate, childlike entreaty. Dad, tell her. Marcus finally raised his head from the grill. His face was a pallid, sweat-drenched mask of misery. He looked at me, then hastily averted his gaze to his footwear. He shifted his weight, cleared his throat, and scraped the overcooked burger from the grill. Kesha, he mumbled, still avoiding my eyes. You simply ought not to have provoked your mother into such a state of anger. You are aware of her disposition. And with that single utterance, the final fragment of my world fractured. It was not my mother's clamour that shattered me, it was my father's whisper. Her fury was a conflagration, intense and beyond restraint. His silence was a deliberate act of calculated choice. It signified complicity. It was the ultimate act of betrayal. He had rendered his decision. He would align himself with her, with the deception, with the favoured son, rather than with me, his daughter, who had rescued him from financial ruin. I was utterly isolated. I surveyed the yard. The guests were feigning intense interest in their paper plates. Jamal and Ashley stood near my mother, flanking her, their expressions radiating smug satisfaction. They had emerged victorious. They had successfully portrayed me as the antagonist, the ungrateful offspring, the instigator of discord. A peculiar, chilling tranquility enveloped me. The tears ceased their flow. My hands, which had been trembling, became perfectly motionless. I uttered no further words. There was nothing left to articulate. I cast one final glance at my father, observing his cowardly profile as he refused to meet my gaze. I looked at my mother, who was now breathing heavily, her face still flushed with triumph. I turned away. I proceeded past the guests, my posture erect, my head held high. I traversed the living room, past the familiar photographs adorning the walls, which now felt like a fabrication. I opened the front portal and stepped out into the balmy Atlanta evening. I entered my vehicle. My hands were steady as I inserted the key into the ignition. As the engine sputtered to life, I glanced back at the residence. My mother, Sharon, stood silhouetted in the doorway, bathed in the warm interior light. Her arms were crossed over her chest. She was no longer shouting. She was merely observing my departure, and on her countenance was an expression of unalloyed, absolute triumph. She had effectively banished the problem. I engaged the car in reverse and backed out of the driveway. As I shifted into drive, the tears finally commenced their descent. Hot, silent tears of anguish and a profound, bottomless sorrow. I drove away from the sole domicile I had ever known. "All right," I whispered to the empty interior of the car, the streetlights blurring through my tears. "All right, Mother. You desire my departure? I am gone. You wish for me never to return? Consider it done." I did not drive to my residence. I did not even proceed in the direction of the minuscule, cramped studio apartment my family believed I inhabited. That minor falsehood was my initial line of defense, a financial bulwark I had erected years prior to shield myself from their incessant demands. If they perceived me as merely struggling, they would request less. Instead, I directed my course towards the city centre. The urban lights of Atlanta swirled past my windows, yet my tears had ceased. I was cold. I guided my Tesla, a vehicle they were unaware I possessed, into the valet lane at the Four Seasons. I had no desire for my apartment. I did not wish to be solitary in a place that evoked a sense of home. I required an experience of service. I desired sterile, impersonal opulence. I needed to be reminded of the reality I inhabited, the world I had meticulously constructed entirely independently, separate from them. I checked into the governor's suite. I did not even ascertain the cost. From the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled below, a silent, sprawling dominion that remained oblivious to and uninterested in my family's trivial dramas. I placed an order for room service. A bottle of Veuve Clicquot, the Grande Dame, and the most extravagant cheeseboard you possess. As the champagne arrived, presented on a rolling silver trolley, the adrenaline surge from the confrontation gradually subsided. It yielded a peculiar clarity, a quietude. My mother's voice continued to echo in my mind, vibrating with that venomous rage. Depart from my residence, depart and never return. I poured a glass of champagne, the effervescent bubbles fizzing with an almost aggressive intensity. I took a long, deliberate sip. That's the peculiar part, Mother, I whispered to my reflection in the darkened window pane. You just vociferously commanded me to depart from my own home. The memory resurfaced with vivid sharpness. It was not merely a recollection, it was the clandestine foundation of my entire relationship with them over the preceding 3 years. It was a drizzly Tuesday. My father, Marcus, had requested that I meet him at an unassuming coffee establishment in Midtown, miles distant from our familiar neighborhood. He appeared utterly dejected. His eyes were bloodshot and he had not shaved in days. He was a man who prided himself on his outward appearance, yet he resembled a spectre. Kesha, I am ruined, he whispered, his gaze fixed upon his black coffee. He could not even bring himself to meet my eyes. What is it, Dad? The business. It is gone. I placed my trust in the wrong individuals, made some regrettable investments. It has all been lost. He finally raised his head and his eyes were brimming with a raw panic I had never before witnessed. The bank is initiating foreclosure, my dear. They are confiscating the residence. We have 30 days. He succumbed to a complete body-racking sob in the midst of the quiet cafe. I cannot inform your mother, he choked out, dabbing his face with a coarse paper napkin. The humiliation, Keisha, it will destroy her. Losing that house in front of all her associates, in front of Jamal. Please, you are my intelligent daughter. You are the only one who can provide assistance. Do not permit this to transpire to us. I remained seated, stirring my own coffee, my mind racing. What he did not comprehend, what none of them comprehended, was that I was no longer merely Kesha with the computer job. 6 months prior, the data analytics startup with which I had affiliated immediately after college, the one to which I had dedicated my life, had been acquired by a major technology conglomerate. My stock options, which I had accepted in lieu of a substantial salary for years, had vested. Overnight, I had become a multimillionaire. I had not disclosed this to them. Why would I? Every minor success I had ever shared had either been dismissed or immediately followed by a solicitation from Jamal for a loan. My wealth was my concealed asset, my personal shield. And here stood my father, the man who had invariably lauded Jamal's foresight while disregarding my accomplishments, imploring me to rescue him from public disgrace. I regarded him, this broken man, and I made a decision, a business-oriented resolution. I can offer assistance, Dad, I stated. His head snapped upward, hope flooding his tear-filled eyes. But not in the form of a gift, I continued, my voice firm. This is not a handout. This is a solution. I will not provide you with funds. You have demonstrated an inability to manage them, but I will resolve the predicament. Anything, Keisha. Anything. I'll settle the $300,000 encumbrance on the residence, I stated. He began to weep with relief, but I raised my hand. Wait, in return you will transfer ownership of the house to me, not to me directly, but to a family trust under my jurisdiction. I will be the sole administrator. The trust will bear the designation, the KIW Family Trust. He blinked, a look of bewilderment on his face. What does that entail? It means, Father, that I will possess the house. You and Mother will no longer hold title. You will be occupants. I will fully extinguish the mortgage. I will assume responsibility for property taxes and insurance moving forward. You and Mother may reside there without cost for the remainder of your lives. The property remains within the family. You are shielded from foreclosure. You are shielded from disgrace. This need never be disclosed. He gazed at me, his mind clearly processing the implications. He was relinquishing his most significant asset, but simultaneously erasing his most profound failure. Very well, he conceded, nodding rapidly, the wave of relief washing over him once more. Very well, Kesha. Yes, as you wish, my gratitude. We convened with my legal counsel the subsequent day. David, my attorney, had the necessary documentation prepared instantaneously. They were legally sound. My father conveyed the deed to the KIW Trust. I remitted the $300,000 directly to the financial institution. My mother was never apprised of the intricate details. All she understood was that her husband's financial predicaments had been resolved by Keisha, and the house was secure. The secret was maintained. I reclined on the opulent seating of the hotel suite, a champagne flute cool in my grasp. The recollection was vividly clear. It was not merely a straightforward transfer. My lawyer, David, was a formidable negotiator. He harbored no trust in my father, and he certainly placed no faith in vague assurances of a familial arrangement. This is not a benevolent gesture, Kesha, David had informed me in his austere downtown office 3 years prior. My father sat beside me, perspiring lightly, eager for the meeting to conclude so he could alleviate the bank's pressure. This represents a legal conveyance of a substantial asset, David continued, sliding a substantial document across the table. I have drafted the trust agreement, the KIW Family Trust. You are the sole administrator and primary beneficiary. Your father, Marcus Wilson, will execute the deed of transfer to the trust. In consideration thereof, the trust agrees to satisfy the outstanding $300,000 mortgage encumbrance. And may we remain? My father had inquired, his voice trembling. Your mother? She must not be made aware that we have lost the house. That aspect is accommodated, David assured, turning to a particular page. Article 12, Residency. He elucidated in straightforward terms. Marcus and Sharon Wilson shall be granted perpetual residency within the property. They will reside without charge. The trust, which is me, will cover all property taxes, insurance, and major structural repairs. To my father, it appeared as a miraculous solution. He was saved. However, David, bless his meticulous, skeptical disposition, had insisted on one further stipulation. There is one critical prerequisite to this residency, is there not? David had queried, tapping the page. A safeguard. I have witnessed family agreements deteriorate, Kesha. I am safeguarding your investment and protecting you. He nudged the paper closer. Kindly review Article 12, Section B. My father had narrowed his eyes, scanning the legal verbiage. I read it aloud. The entitlement to residency for Marcus and Sharon Wilson is contingent upon the respectful and unimpeded enjoyment of the property by the primary beneficiary, Keisha Wilson. This entitlement to residency shall be immediately invalidated and rendered void should the primary beneficiary be denied reasonable access, enjoyment, or be unjustly expelled from the property by the residents. David addressed my father. Do you grasp the implication of this, Marcus? It signifies that if you or your wife, for any reason whatsoever, attempt to bar Kesha, inform her she is unwelcome, or, for instance, vociferously order her to depart and never return, this contract is abrogated, your perpetual residency is terminated, You will then be considered tenants at sufferance, and Keisha will possess the immediate and incontrovertible right to dispossess you. My father had chuckled nervously. That would never transpire. Good heavens, no. Kesha is our daughter. She is welcome at any time. This is merely legal formalism. I comprehend. He had affixed his signature to the document without hesitation. My mother, Sharon, had never even perused the document. She was not present at the meeting. My father, in his shame, had fabricated a convenient untruth. He had told her Keisha had co-signed a new loan or assisted with the finances. She simply understood that her employment at the computer firm had somehow rectified the financial shortfall. She had absolutely no inkling that for the preceding 3 years she had not been the matriarch of her domain. She had been a guest. I took another sip of champagne in the hotel suite. My mother, in her outburst of fury, had committed the very act David had foreseen. She was unaware that her own pronouncements, "Get out and never come back," were not merely a cruel insult. They constituted a legal trigger. She had inadvertently handed me the keys to her entire existence. I retrieved my phone from the marble side table. My hand was perfectly steady. The rage had dissipated, replaced by a frigid, surgical precision. I located David's contact information. "David, it's Kesha Wilson," I announced when his paralegal answered. "I require his immediate attention. It pertains to the KIW Trust." I was placed on hold for less than 10 seconds. "Keisha," David's sharp voice came over the line. "This is unexpected. Is everything satisfactory with the property? I have not heard from you in months." "Everything is satisfactory with the property, David," I replied, taking another sip of champagne. "The issue lies with the residents." What has transpired?" I provided him with a condensed version, the gathering, the demand for $50,000 for Jamal's NFT venture, my refusal, my mother's furious reaction. She vehemently expressed it in the presence of at least 30 individuals. "David," her precise words were, get out of my house and never return." I paused, allowing the gravity of her words to resonate. "Now, I am calling to confirm my understanding of our agreement, Article 12, Section B, the Residency Clause. Am I correct in my interpretation that this constitutes a complete and immediate violation?" There was a brief silence on the other end. Then I heard David emit a short, dry chuckle. It was not a sound of amusement. It was a sound of legal triumph. "A violation," he echoed. "Kesha, that is not a violation. That is an implosion. That clause was the safeguard I implemented precisely for an eventuality such as this. You were unjustly removed from the property. Your entitlement to enjoyment was rescinded. Your mother's pronouncements in the presence of witnesses have effectively nullified her own residency agreement. So the perpetual residency is invalidated." As of the instant she uttered those words, it is unequivocally null and void. Legally, Marcus and Sharon Wilson are no longer protected residents. As of this moment, they are tenants at sufferance, or more accurately, trespassers. "So I can divest the property," I posited. It was not a question. "Keisha," David replied, and I detected a smile in his tone. "You can divest the property. You can dispossess them. You can do precisely as you desire. It is 100% your property, unburdened by any prior encumbrances. They have effectively presented you with the keys, the deed, and the entire dominion. What would you like me to do?" "I require you to prepare the requisite documentation, David," I instructed, my voice as frigid as the ice in my champagne bucket. "The eviction notices, and I need you to be prepared to facilitate an immediate cash-only transaction. I am placing the residence on the market this evening." "Consider it accomplished. I will have the preliminary notices drafted within the hour." I concluded the call with David. My adrenaline surged. There was no margin for delay. I immediately accessed the contact for Melanie King, the preeminent high-end real estate agent in Atlanta. I had not merely known Melanie, I had cultivated this connection by referring her technology clients over the past 2 years. She owed me a favor. She responded on the second ring. Keisha, what a pleasant surprise. I was just about to send you a message about that new condominium listing in Midtown. Are you finally prepared to abandon that diminutive studio? Hello, Melanie. I am contacting you regarding a different matter. I require your services immediately. Her tone shifted instantly, entirely professional. Very well, I am attentive. What is the property? The residence in Collier Heights, the 4-bedroom colonial, my family's home. Your parents' residence? Melanie sounded perplexed. Are they indisposed? They are well, I responded, my voice curt and frigid. However, the property is held within a trust under my control, and the residency stipulations have been contravened. The house is now available for my disposition, and I wish for it to be sold. Melanie possessed sufficient acumen to refrain from probing personal questions. Understood. You require an appraisal? We can commence the... I wish for it to be listed, I interjected. Not next month. I require it to be available on the market by this Friday, this weekend. I detected the faint sound of her typing. Kesha, a property of that caliber, listing it so rapidly. To achieve the optimal price, we ought to arrange for staging and professional photography. I am not concerned with the optimal price. I am concerned with the swiftest price. I inquired, what is the current market status for that particular locale? There was a pause as she accessed the data. The market in Collier Heights is exceptionally robust, indeed scorching. Inventory is limited, and that particular street is highly sought after. A 4-bedroom in that condition, even with an expeditious sale. You could readily command $1.2 million, perhaps $1.3 million if we initiate a bidding competition. $1.2 million, the sum my father had relinquished for a $300,000 reprieve. Excellent, I stated. List it. I require an immediate cash offer, devoid of contingencies. Conclude the transaction within 14 days or less. Can you facilitate this? Melanie emitted a low whistle. A cash-only, rapid closing sale will indeed restrict our pool of potential buyers, but at that price point, we will still attract considerable investor interest. Yes, I can accommodate this. I will require access for photography tomorrow. My attorney, David, will liaise regarding all legal documentation and access credentials. Just ensure its completion, Melanie. I desire it to be sold before my champagne bottle is depleted. Consider it listed, Keisha. The listing will be active by sunset tomorrow. The communications with David and Melanie constituted the legal aspect. The subsequent stage was personal. It was the financial disentanglement. I rotated in the plush hotel chair, my laptop warm upon my lap. I accessed a secure browser, logged into my private wealth management account, and navigated to the scheduled payment section. It was an extensive compilation. For 3 years, I had not merely averted foreclosure. I had been subsidizing their entire existence, all under the pretense of providing assistance. I was their clandestine benefactor, and they had treated me as their indentured subordinate. I located the initial entry. Marcus Wilson Auto Loan. My father's Lexus. $850 per month, automatically disbursed from my account on the 1st. A vehicle he utilized for excursions to the golf club. A vehicle he employed to project an image of a prosperous provider, while his own daughter financed his expenditures. My finger hovered over the mouse. He had stood by silently, permitting my mother to berate me. He had prioritized his pride over his child. I clicked cancel payment. a diminutive box materialized. "Are you certain you wish to discontinue this recurring payment?" I selected confirm. Next. Sharon Wilson MX account. My mother. $2,000 per month. This was her discretionary fund, which I had established so she could procure provisions without necessitating a request to my father for funds. However, I had reviewed the statements. It was not for provisions, it was for spa treatments. It was for midday meals, with her associates at establishments to which I was not invited. It was the price of her approval, and it transpired that my credit limit was insufficient. I clicked cancel payment. I clicked confirm. Next. Jamal Wilson Business Consulting. This was the most offensive entry. $2,500 per month. It was his allowance, a direct transfer to which I had assented, so he could establish himself after his initial business venture faltered. 3 years later, he was still striving for establishment, and now he sought an additional $50,000 for an NFT con. This payment was not merely financing his failures, it was fueling his arrogance. I clicked cancel payment. Confirm. Finally. Ashley Wilson, household expenses. $1,500 per month. This was allocated for Jamal's wife, the one who harbored disdain for my computer-related occupation. This card was intended for familial necessities for my non-existent nephew or niece. Instead, the statements revealed charges for research expeditions to Bali, designer handbags, and extravagant dinners. She had stood beside Jamal, smirking as I endured verbal abuse. I clicked cancel payment. Confirm. I scrolled down the list. Automobile insurance, their family mobile plan, their high-speed internet. I terminated every single one. The digital confirmation of each cancellation was the sound of a chain breaking. Within the span of 5 minutes, I had suspended nearly $7,000 in monthly support. They were simply unaware of it yet. I was observing the confirmation screen for the final payment, a notification from Ashley's cancelled card. When my personal telephone rang, it was not one of them. The caller identification simply read, Aunt Amani, my father's sister. The sole individual in my entire family who consistently inquired about my work and genuinely listened to the response. The only one who dispatched a check for my college graduation, despite my own parents having forgotten. I allowed the adrenaline to subside and answered, my voice still somewhat unsteady. Aunt Imani, Kesha, darling, thank God you answered. Her voice was rich and warm, yet tinged with a concern that immediately placed me on edge. I have just concluded a conversation with your father. He is presently discussing family emergencies and misunderstandings. Darling, what has occurred? Did Sharon truly expel you? The validation in her voice, the fact that she believed me instantaneously, nearly brought me to tears again. She did, Auntie, in front of everyone. She vociferously commanded it, instructed me to depart and never return. I heard a long, drawn-out sigh on the other end. Lord, that woman's folly. After all you have done, I apprehended this day would arrive. So what will be your recourse? I have already enacted it, I declared, my voice hardening. I have deactivated the credit cards, all of them, and I am divesting the residence. You what? You are divesting the residence? It is mine, Auntie. I have held ownership for 3 years. She contravened the contract. I am divesting it. There was a pause, and then Auntie Imani began to laugh. It was a deep, contented chuckle. Good for you, oh darling, good for you. It is long overdue. And you know what? It is poetic justice. That is what it is. What do you mean by that, Kesha? She inquired, her voice deepening, becoming serious. There is a matter I have refrained from discussing for 15 years out of deference to my brother, but he has just demonstrated that he does not merit my silence. Do you have any knowledge of the origin of that initial $300,000, the funds your father lost? He stated it was his business, poor investments partly, but do you comprehend from whence he acquired the initial capital that he lost? Do you recall when your grandfather, Thomas, your mother's father, passed away when you were 18? Vaguely. Mother mentioned he left little. He did not leave them substantial means. Auntie Manie corrected. He bequeathed you $50,000 in a trust for your 18th birthday. I sat bolt upright in the hotel chair. What? $50,000? Darling, your mother and father informed you it was college funds that necessitated management by the family. They instructed you not to touch it. And then, when Marcus's business began to falter, prior to him ever approaching you, he borrowed that $50,000. He did not merely lose the house once, Kesha. He lost it subsequent to having already depleted your entire inheritance in an attempt to salvage it. The room began to spin. They stole it. They stole it, she confirmed. So do not harbor any guilt about acquiring that house. You did not merely purchase it 3 years ago. You compensated for it twice. You are simply at long last collecting the debt. I terminated the call with Aunt Manie, my hand feeling numb. The champagne in my glass had lost its effervescence. I paid it no mind. The residual warmth in my chest had evaporated, replaced by an Arctic chill. It was not merely the gathering, it was not merely the mortgage, it was a lifetime of calculated deceit. They had not merely exploited me, they had pilfered from me. They had appropriated my inheritance, the final bequest from my grandfather, and utilized it to rectify their own errors, all while asserting that I was the ungrateful one. My animosity, which had been a fervent, chaotic outburst, now cooled and sharpened into something new, something hard and clear as a diamond. It was resolve. I was no longer a daughter reacting to a familial dispute. I was an administrator executing a commercial decision. I contacted Melanie once more. Melanie, I require that listing to be active tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Tonight, Keisha, the photographs. Utilize the photographs from the most recent appraisal. I am indifferent. Simply place it on the private market listings. I desire a cash-only 14-day closing as is. Price it at $1.25 million. The initial offer at that valuation secures it. I will not engage in negotiation. $1.25 million. That is aggressive for a swift sale, she responded. It is a robust market, Melanie. You indicated as much yourself. And it is a desirable neighborhood. The investors will recognize the value. I simply desire this to be concluded. Understood, Melanie replied, her voice mirroring the urgency in mine. Understood, boss. I will have it listed within the hour. True to her word, by midnight the listing was live. My phone, which I had set to do not disturb for all family members, remained silent. The silence emanating from their end was profound. It had been over 24 hours since my mother had dismissed me. No calls, no texts, not even an irate message from Jamal regarding his cancelled card. They were employing the silent treatment. They were expecting me to sulk. They fully anticipated my return in a few days, replete with apologies, begging to be reintegrated into the family fold, prepared to reactivate the financial conduits. They perceived my actions as a childish outburst. They had no conception that I was orchestrating a demolition. For the subsequent 2 days, I resided at the Four Seasons. I conducted my work remotely via my laptop. I ordered room service and I communicated solely with David and Melanie. On Monday morning, Melanie contacted me. You were not jesting, she stated, her voice filled with astonishment. We have received 3 all-cash offers. One is for $1.2 million. One is at your asking price, $1.25 million, and a third from an investment firm in California is for $1.25 million. Furthermore, they will cover all closing expenses. They wish to conclude the transaction in 10 days. Accept the California offer, I replied without hesitation. Transmit the documentation to David immediately. It is finalized. Keisha, are you well? I am excellent, Melanie. My gratitude. I concluded the call. The residence was sold. The transaction was in progress. And my family was entirely unaware. They were likely situated in my living room, lamenting my disposition, completely oblivious to the ticking clock. They had not realized the credit cards were maxed out and declined. They had not realized the automobile payment was overdue. They had not realized the house they were occupying was no longer theirs. The storm was approaching, and I was the storm. 10 days, that was the duration of the silence. 10 days of me working remotely from the Four Seasons, coordinating with David on the sale, and having no contact with anyone from my family. The quiet was blissful. I had almost forgotten the storm that was poised to break. The first domino fell on a Tuesday. I was engaged in a critical Zoom call with my data science team, guiding them through a new predictive model. My phone set to silent, illuminated on the desk beside me. It was Jamal. I disregarded it. It buzzed repeatedly. On the fourth call, I sighed, motioned to my team for a 1-minute intermission, and muted my microphone. I picked up the phone. Jamal, Keisha, oh my goodness. Finally, where have you been? Are you in proximity to your bank? His voice was a high-pitched squeak of unadulterated panic. I had never heard him sound in such a state. He typically spoke with a languid, entitled cadence. This was novel. I am in a meeting, Jamal. What is amiss? It's the card, the business card you provided me. It is not functioning, he declared, his words tumbling over one another. I am here at the tech vendor, where I was procuring the monitors for the gallery. I had my new partners with me, Kesha, partners, and they declined it. They attempted it 3 times. It simply indicated declined. They regarded me as a mockery. I leaned back in my chair. I took a sip of water. I pictured him standing in a retail establishment, his face flushed, his easy charm failing him for the first time. How profoundly embarrassing for you, I stated, my voice flat. What, Kesha? This is not amusing. This is a catastrophe. You must contact the bank. It must be some form of system anomaly. Perhaps you've hit a ceiling. Is it possible to just send me the funds? I'm in urgent need of $12,000 immediately. Just wire it over. I'll reimburse you once the NFTs begin to sell. Once the NFTs start selling? The sheer delusion was almost admirable. Jamal, I said, making sure my voice remained extremely quiet. There is no system malfunction. What do you mean by that? Of course there is. The card functioned perfectly last week when I took the partners out for dinner. Yes, I replied. I'm quite sure it did. However, it's not a system glitch, Jamal. It was a deliberate choice. A choice? What choice? Just contact the bank and resolve it. I'm looking like an idiot here. No, Jamal, I stated, prolonging the moment just a bit. This isn't a banking decision. This is my decision. I deactivated the card. A lengthy, staticky silence ensued on the line. I could discern the faint hum of the electronics store's ambient music in the background. Deactivated? Jamal finally stammered. What do you mean deactivated? You can't just deactivate it. Why would you do that? I require that card, Keisha. My partners are standing right here. No, Jamal, I responded. My voice was hushed, but it now carried a new gravitas. You're mistaken. You don't need that card. I need that card. Or, to be more precise, I need the money that you have been expending on it. Money, which, by the way, has always been mine. What are you? I don't comprehend what you're discussing. Let me make myself absolutely clear then, I said, leaning forward in my hotel chair. I'm referring to the party 10 days ago, the one where I was publicly embarrassed and then yelled at by our mother. Oh, come on, Kesh. The one where she told me, and I'm cutting you off here, to leave and never return, in front of everyone. And you just stood there, Dad stood there, Ashley stood there. None of you uttered a single word, so I did precisely as she instructed. I departed. Kesha, that's just Mum being Mum. You can't be serious. I am completely serious, Jamal. I am no longer affiliated with this family. Those were the stipulated conditions, and if I am no longer a part of the family, I am certainly no longer bound by the family's financial obligations. The Bank of Keisha is permanently closed. Don't be so immature, he shouted, his voice trembling with alarm. That was merely an argument. You know, she was just upset. She didn't mean it. You're actually going to jeopardize my deal over a trivial disagreement. This was not a trivial disagreement, Jamal. This was the culmination of a lifetime of behavior, finally reaching its inevitable conclusion. You require $50,000. Ask Mom, ask Dad, or even better, as a visionary entrepreneur in your 30s, it's time you learned how to procure it yourself. Keisha, wait, don't you dare hang up on me, I ended the call. I unmuted my Zoom conference, offered my team a smile, and said, My apologies for the interruption. Now, regarding that algorithm, I had just concluded my Zoom meeting, a successful discussion that secured a new contract. My phone rang again, and naturally it was my mother. The caller ID, Sharon, seemed to mock me. I let it ring twice, took a sip of my now lukewarm champagne, and answered, Hello, Mom. Kesha Amani Wilson. What in heaven's name do you think you're doing? The shriek was so piercing I had to pull the phone from my ear. There was no pleasantry, just raw, unadulterated fury. I'm unsure of your meaning, I stated, my voice dangerously calm. Don't play coy with me. Your brother is in his car, weeping, crying, Kesha. He's utterly humiliated. And Ashley? Ashley just called me from the checkout line at Whole Foods. Her card was declined in front of everyone. Are you attempting to dismantle this family? Are you trying to disgrace us? I surveyed the elegant, silent hotel suite. The stark contrast between her turmoil and my composure was almost amusing. Disgrace you? I repeated. No, Mother, I'm not attempting anything. I'm simply gone, just as you instructed. What are you referring to? I'm talking about the credit cards. You will reactivate them immediately. Ashley is stranded at the grocery store. That sounds like Ashley's predicament, I replied. Or perhaps her husband, Jamal. I'm confident he can utilize some of his visionary skills to resolve it. You will cease this. You will stop this at once, she screamed. You are a member of this family and you will not do this to us. Mother, I said, and my voice was so glacial it surprised even me. You were exceedingly clear 10 days ago. You stood before 30 individuals and commanded me to leave. You instructed me to never return. Therefore I departed and I took my funds with me. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot expel me from the family and then expect me to cover the expenses. I am acting precisely as you directed. I am gone. I don't care about what I said, she shrieked, her voice cracking with an overwhelming sense of entitlement. I don't care about some dispute we had. I am your mother and I am informing you that I have a dinner engagement with the Harrises this evening. The Harrises? Kesha, do you comprehend? I require a new gown. I need my hair styled. Ashley is stranded. You will reactivate those cards immediately. The sheer preposterousness of it all almost compelled me to laugh. She was situated in a property I owned, a property slated for sale within days, screaming at me because she couldn't purchase a new dress for a party to which, naturally, I was not invited. No, Mother, I stated. What did you just say to me? I replied, No, I apologize. I am unable to assist you with that. You can't, she sputtered, so consumed by rage she could barely articulate a coherent sentence. Kesha, if you do not reactivate those cards within the next 5 minutes, I swear to God. And what will you do? I inquired, genuinely curious. What exactly will you do? Mother, banish me again. You've already done that. Disown me. You've already accomplished that as well. You have no remaining leverage with which to threaten me. I am your mother, and I am a person you discarded. Farewell, mother. I ended the call. My phone immediately rang. Sharon. I declined the incoming call, and with a satisfying click, I blocked her number. I reclined, my heart pounding, but a curious sense of tranquility washed over me. I had finally accomplished it. 10 minutes later, the telephone in my hotel suite chimed. I answered. Hello, Miss Wilson. This is Marcus from the front desk. His voice was polite but strained. I am so sorry to disturb you, but there is a woman in the lobby, a Mrs. Sharon Wilson. She is rather insistent that she speak with you. She claims to be your mother and states it is an emergency. I closed my eyes. Of course, she hadn't anticipated my presence here. She had gone to my studio apartment first, found it empty, panicked, and was now contacting every upscale hotel in the city, attempting to locate me. Marcus? I said, my voice smooth as polished glass. I have never encountered an individual by that name in my entire life. I am here on business, and I have no family in Atlanta. She must be mistaken. Oh, I see, Miss Wilson. I apologize for the intrusion. Thank you, Marcus. Kindly instruct your staff not to relay any calls to my room unless they are on the approved list I provided at check-in. And please have security escort that woman off the premises. She sounds unstable. Immediately, Miss Wilson. I disconnected. I walked to the window. Indeed, 20 floors below, I could observe a diminutive figure, my mother, engaged in an argument with 2 uniformed security guards. After a moment, they gently but firmly guided her toward the street. I savored my champagne. The ejection from the Four Seasons lobby must have triggered a complete breakdown in my mother. The subsequent assault didn't arrive via telephone. It materialized in an email late that night. The sender was Ashley. The subject line simply read, "What are you doing?" I opened it. It was an epic, a lengthy, rambling, vitriolic testament to projection and fury. "I don't know who you think you are," it began. "You believe that simply because you possess a modest sum of money, you can obliterate everyone. You are an utterly selfish, envious child, Keisha. You have perpetually been jealous of Jamal. You cannot bear to witness his happiness and his accomplishments, so you must tear him down. You are a disgrace." It continued in this vein for several paragraphs, but then it took a turn that sent a chill down my spine. "And don't you dare pretend you are some paragon of virtue. You are nothing more than a race traitor. You have forsaken your family. You abandoned your black siblings and your black parents in their time of need simply to feel empowered. I have contributed more to this family in 3 years than you have in 32. You are merely a cowardly rat hiding in your opulent hotel room, too terrified to confront the reality of your actions." A white woman who had married into our family and adopted our culture as a mere costume was accusing me of being a race traitor because I had ceased enabling her to spend my money. The sheer audacity was astonishing. I read the email a second time. My hand didn't even tremble. I simply forwarded it. I typed in David's email address. For the subject line, I wrote, "For your records." In the body of the email, I penned a single sentence. "David, please add this to the harassment file. It may prove useful should they attempt to claim emotional distress." I hit send. Then I deleted her email and blocked her email address. I was about to shut down my laptop when my personal phone rang. It was Aunt Manny. I smiled and answered, "War update, Auntie." I heard her attempting to suppress a chuckle. Baby, you have ignited a firestorm within this family that is simply delightful to observe. Your father just called me in a complete panic. Oh, really? What about the Lexus? The payment is overdue. He received an alert and he contacted the finance company, and they informed him that the automatic payment had been cancelled. He was exclaiming, I don't understand. My daughter handles all of that. He wanted me to call you and tell you to rectify it. And what did you say? I told him, she replied, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Marcus, it sounds like your daughter has already rectified it. Perhaps you should have been kinder to the one with the bank account. Perhaps I had to mute the phone. I was laughing so uncontrollably hard. He hung up on me. They are finally comprehending what you have been doing for them, and they are not handling it well. The final, most crucial call arrived 4 days later. Friday morning, 14 days after the party, the first of the month had passed. The mortgage payment, which I had personally arranged for automatic withdrawal from my trust account, was now officially delinquent. The bank's grace period was expiring. I was reviewing the sales contract for the house when my phone rang. Dad, this was it. I let it ring 3 times, took a deep breath, and answered, placing it on speaker. Kesha. His voice was strained. He was attempting to sound casual, as if he were merely calling to chat, but the underlying tension was so palpable I could almost reach out and touch it. There was no greeting, no inquiry about my well-being. Hi, Dad. Hey, Pumpkin. Listen, I'm glad I caught you. Something peculiar is occurring. I just received a call from Central Bank. A rather perplexing call. Oh, I replied, maintaining a neutral tone. Yes, they're stating that the mortgage payment for this month, it hasn't been processed. They mentioned that the automatic payment was cancelled. I informed them that's impossible, that you manage all of that. It must be some sort of error, correct? He emitted a short, nervous bark of a laugh. I've been trying to reach you all week, but your phone, it just keeps going straight to voicemail. I've been occupied, I stated. Yes, well, I'm sure you have. Look, could you please check your bank account? I believe when you cancelled those other cards for Jamal and your mother, you know, when you were upset, you likely cancelled the mortgage payment by accident. It's an easily made mistake. If you could just call them and sort it out, I'd be grateful. They're starting to use terms like default. He was offering me an out. He was proposing a means for me to save face, to feign that this was all a dreadful, impulsive mistake, and to simply revert everything to its previous state. I remained seated, gazing at the signed multi-million-dollar sales contract displayed on my laptop. I drew a slow, deep breath. There was no error, Dad. What do you mean? His voice faltered. I mean, it wasn't an accident. I didn't unintentionally cancel it. I paused, allowing the reality to fully sink in. I halted the payment deliberately. What do you mean you stopped it? My father's voice was thin, the forced casualness entirely absent. Kesha, that's not possible. It's an automatic payment. You set it up yourself. It was an automatic payment, I corrected him, from my trust account, an account over which I possess complete control. I intervened manually, Dad. I logged in, I located the recurring payment labeled mortgage, and I clicked cancel. It wasn't an accident. I stopped the payment. The silence on the other end of the line was oppressive. I could hear his breathing quicken, becoming shallow. Why? He finally choked out. In God's name, Keisha, why? This isn't like the credit cards. This is the house. You know we can't. You know I don't possess that kind of wealth. Are you attempting to punish your mother? Is that it? Are you willing to render us homeless simply to retaliate against her? His accusation, his immediate attempt to portray me as the cruel, vengeful child, was so utterly predictable, so practiced. Punish her, I replied, my voice utterly devoid of emotion. No, Dad, I'm not punishing anyone. I am merely adhering to instructions. Mother was exceptionally clear. Depart and never return. Those were her precise words. She shrieked them in front of 30 witnesses. So I'm out, I'm gone, and if I'm gone, my funds are gone as well. It seems quite straightforward to me. You cannot possess one without the other. But that's just words, Keisha. His voice was escalating, cracking with a panic I hadn't heard since the day he implored me to save him from foreclosure. She was upset. She didn't mean it. You can't just let the bank repossess our home. He was pleading now. Our home, the home where you grew up, where your brother and your mother reside. You can't simply allow them to cast us out onto the street. Keisha, please. I paused, allowing his desperation to resonate in the quiet of my hotel suite. You're correct, Dad, I stated softly. What? He sounded relieved, clinging to that minuscule sliver of hope. Okay, good. So you'll contact them, you'll rectify this, you'll reinstate the payment. No, I responded. I mean, you're right. I cannot permit the bank to seize the house, and I won't. Then what? You're merely a bit confused about the situation, Dad. You see, the bank isn't going to seize the house at all. Oh, Dad, don't fret, I said, my voice suddenly light, almost cheerful. I promise you, the bank will not take the house. He seized upon that immediately. They're not? Oh, thank goodness, Kesha, baby. I knew you wouldn't. So you'll pay it. You'll make the payment right now. The relief in his voice was pitiable. No, Dad, I am not going to make the payment, but the bank still won't take the house. I could hear his confused, heavy breathing on the other end. What? What are you talking about, Keisha? That makes no sense. If we don't pay the mortgage, the bank forecloses. That's how it works. That's how it works. When the bank holds the mortgage, I said, but the bank no longer holds that mortgage. Dad, I paid it off 3 years ago. Remember? Yes, but they are contacting me about a default. No, I am contacting you about a default. Or rather, I will be. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's start simple. I paused, allowing the silence to stretch, picturing him pacing the kitchen, his hand gripping the phone. Dad, I said, my voice dropping into that cold, clear tone, you cannot lose something that you do not possess. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so profound I thought he might have disconnected. I could hear the faint, distant sound of a car horn from my hotel window, but from his end there was nothing, not even breathing. What did you say? He finally whispered. I asked, I said, enunciating every word. If you had actually read the documents you signed 3 years ago, or were you simply so desperate to conceal your failure from Mum that you would have signed anything I placed before you? It was a loan, he stammered. You were helping us, a family loan. No, Dad, it was not a loan, it was a transfer. You were bankrupt. You had zero collateral. No one, not even I, would loan you $300,000. I did not loan you the money, I purchased the asset. No. Keisha, yes, Dad. You signed a quitclaim deed. You transferred the full and legal title of the property at 452 Collier Drive to a private trust. A trust I established, a trust I control. Do you recall the name, Dad, or were you not paying attention? He remained silent. It's called the KIW Family Trust. Kesha Imani Wilson. Legally, Dad. That is my house. Your trust? My father stammered. I could hear the blood draining from his face through the phone. What are you talking about? You said it was just a formality. It was a legal transfer, Dad. And you signed it. You signed the deed over to the KIW Family Trust, of which I am the sole trustee. And within that trust agreement, there was a clause. Do you recall it? Article 12, the residency clause. I don't. Let me refresh your memory, I said, pulling up the document on my laptop. I read it to him, my voice clear and slow. Article 12, Section B. The right of residency for Marcus and Sharon Wilson is contingent upon the respectful and full enjoyment of the property by the primary beneficiary, Kesha Worship Wilson. This right of residency shall be immediately nullified and voided should the primary beneficiary be denied reasonable access, enjoyment, or be... I let the legal jargon hang in the air for a moment. Do you comprehend what that signifies, Dad? When Mother stood in that backyard in front of 30 witnesses and screamed at me to leave and never return, she didn't merely hurt my feelings, she violated a legally binding contract. No, Keisha, she was angry. And you? I interrupted him. You stood right there. You said nothing. You allowed her to do it. Your silence was complicity. You both violated the terms of the trust. As of that moment, your lifetime residency was terminated. It's gone. No, you can't, he pleaded, his voice cracking. That's our home, Keisha. You can't just evict us. We're your parents. I am not merely evicting you, Dad. I said you're confused. Eviction is for tenants. You are trespassers on my property. Please, Keisha, we can resolve this. I'll speak with your mother. We'll apologize. Well, it is too late for that, I responded. You seem to believe you are merely late on a payment. You do not comprehend. The contract is breached, and you are not simply trespassing. I paused, savoring the final, beautiful, terrible moment. I already sold it. I heard a sharp, strangled gasp on the other end of the line. It sounded as if he couldn't draw breath. What did you do? He whispered. I sold the house, Dad, I said, my voice as placid as the grave. Melanie listed it on Monday. We received 3 all-cash offers by Tuesday. I accepted one from a California investment firm, 1.25, $25 million. They have already wired the earnest money and they wish to close in 10 days. Actually, as of this morning, we've expedited it. They close in 1 week. I let that sink in. This isn't a joke, he stated, not a question, but a dawning, horrified realization. No, Dad, this is not a joke. This is a real estate transaction and it is final, which means, I continued, that you, your mother, Jamal, and his charming wife, Ashley, have precisely 7 days to remove all of your belongings from my property. I heard a loud clatter, followed by a heavy thud. He had dropped the phone. I waited. I could hear him fumbling, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Kesha. His voice returned, but it was different. It was the voice of the broken man in the coffee shop 3 years ago. The voice of a supplicant. Kesha, baby, please don't do this. Your mother, she won't survive this. This will destroy her. This will destroy us. The plea, the baby, the us, it all felt so hollow. Where was this concern when he allowed her to berate me? Where was this concern when he pilfered my inheritance? She should have considered that before she violated a legal contract. I said, my voice like ice. She should have considered that before she treated me like dirt. We'll apologize. We'll do anything. Just halt the sale. Call them back. Tell them it was a mistake. No, I stated, this is not a mistake. This is a consequence. This is what transpires when you bite the hand that feeds you, Dad. And you didn't just inflict minor damage. You attempted to sever it completely. Please, Keisha. You have 7 days, I reiterated, cutting him short. My legal counsel, David, will formally deliver the official notice to vacate via registered mail tomorrow morning. I recommend you instruct Jamal to postpone his digital art exhibition and commence arrangements for relocation. Best of luck, Father. Keisha, hold on. Don't. I disconnected the call. I rose from the opulent hotel seating and approached the window. I surveyed the dazzling cityscape of Atlanta spread out below. I experienced no elation. I felt no sorrow. No anger stirred within me. I was simply devoid of feeling, and for the very first time in my existence, I experienced absolute and total liberation. The ensuing 7 days were a unique form of torment. However, this time I was not its inhabitant. I was the observer of its destruction. The official notice of eviction, requiring a signature and delivered by a court officer, arrived at my former residence the following morning. According to David, my mother declined to acknowledge receipt. Consequently, the officer legally served the document to my father at the doorway. That precipitated the deluge of subsequent communications. My father contacted me again, not just once, but at least 20 times that day. His demeanor transformed with each attempt. The initial conversation was characterized by entreaty. Kesha. All right, understood. I acknowledge your feelings. You are understandably displeased. However, let us engage in a rational discourse. The property's valuation stands at $1.25 million. What if we were to receive $500,000 from the sale? Merely $500,000. That sum could facilitate our securing new accommodation and regaining stability. You would still realize a substantial profit. It presents a mutually beneficial outcome. I simply stated, no, Father. The sale is absolute and I will not provide any funds. The subsequent call, an hour later, conveyed unadulterated fury. I will initiate legal proceedings, he bellowed, his voice strained. I will inform the court that you deceived me. I will contend that you exploited my financial precariousness. I will have that trust agreement nullified. You have committed fraud, Kesha. Fraud. My voice remained steady. You are welcome to pursue that course of action, Father, but I would strongly advise your attorney to request all discovery materials from David beforehand, specifically the high-definition video recording of the entirety of the signing meeting. He paused. What is this? What video? The one where David, my legal representative, directly inquires, Marcus, do you comprehend that you are transferring complete and legal ownership of your dwelling to the KIW Trust? And your response? Ah, yes, you smiled. You looked directly into the camera and stated, I comprehend perfectly, and I am profoundly grateful to my daughter for rescuing our family from ruin. Would you truly wish for a judge to witness that? He terminated the connection. The third call, occurring close to midnight, was precisely as anticipated. The pleading Kesha, my darling. His voice was broken, shattered. I cannot. Your mother, she is not well. She has remained confined to the bedroom. She has not consumed sustenance in 2 days. She is merely lying in the darkness, weeping. You are inflicting this upon her. You are causing your mother's demise. Whatever transgression we committed, we merit this. Does she merit this? She deserved a daughter who cherished her, I responded, my voice hollow, and she discarded that opportunity. You have 6 days remaining, Father. I suggest you cease your calls and commence your preparations for departure. Naturally, Jamal and Ashley experienced their own emotional breakdowns. Following my father's unsuccessful efforts, my phone became inundated with text messages from Ashley. They were expressions of raw fury. You believe yourself to be exceptionally astute, do you not? You envious, self-centered little... We are aware of your intentions. You are merely resentful because Jamal possesses genuine foresight, while you are merely a number cruncher. Subsequently, the messages adopted the same peculiar, desperate trajectory as her previous electronic correspondence. You are a disgrace to your own lineage. A true woman of color would never act in such a manner. You would support your own people. You are a traitor to your race, Keisha, prioritizing the financial gain derived from your Caucasian partner over your own family. You are pathetic. I perused the messages consecutively, experiencing nothing beyond a dull, weary disdain. This sentiment emanated from the very individual who, merely 2 weeks prior, had derided my unassuming occupation in the technology sector. I saw no need to respond. I simply pressed and held my finger on her contact designation and selected the option to block contact. A few hours later, Jamal attempted communication. His approach differed significantly. He endeavored to assume the role of the reasonable individual, the adept mediator. Kesh, greetings. I acknowledge that everyone is experiencing considerable distress. He initiated his discourse with a smooth, conciliatory tone. Mother, you are aware of her disposition. She tends to react impulsively. She did not intend her words. And father is merely under strain. But come now, my sister, you cannot possibly be serious about this. Evicting mother and father, rendering them homeless. That is not characteristic of you. Who do you perceive me to be, Jamal? I inquired, my voice devoid of inflection. Who do you believe I am? You are our sister. You are the one who consistently provides assistance. You are the responsible individual. Do not allow a single unfavorable evening to jeopardize everything. We are a family, Keisha. You cannot simply abandon us. Jamal, I stated, I was the one who offered assistance, and in return all of you stood by and permitted mother to subject me to relentless criticism for asserting a refusal for the first time in my life. You have 5 days remaining. I suggest you cease your attempts at contact and commence assisting them with their packing. I terminated the call, and my phone immediately rang once more. This time a smile touched my lips. It was Aunt Mani. How is my exceptionally favoured, recently liberated millionaire faring? She inquired with a hearty laugh. I am managing, Auntie. Surviving, my dear. You are thriving. I have just concluded a conversation with your father again. He has transitioned from pleading to what I can only describe as emitting sounds akin to a small, distressed animal. It was quite amusing. I am currently situated on my veranda, enjoying a mimosa and raising a toast in your honour. Excellent work, Keisha. It is long overdue that someone put Sharon in her rightful place. The ultimate confrontation did not transpire at the hotel. It occurred at my professional establishment. It was Friday, the 6th day. They had but 1 day remaining before the new proprietors assumed control. I was within my actual office, a sleek, glass-enclosed space offering panoramic views of downtown Atlanta. The Four Seasons had served as my operational hub, but this was my bastion. I was engaged in a discussion with my lead developer when my assistant activated the intercom. Kesha. Her voice conveyed a sense of hesitation. I am uncertain how to manage this situation. There are individuals in the reception area, a Mr. and Mrs. Wilson accompanied by 2 others. They assert that it is an urgent matter, a family crisis. They are causing a considerable disturbance. My mother, predictably, would choose to bring her theatrical displays directly to my doorstep. I exhaled. It is acceptable, Maria. Do not summon security. Simply escort them to conference room number 3 and provide them with refreshments. Nothing further. Inform them that I shall arrive in precisely 5 minutes. My developer regarded me with a questioning look. Are you certain you are all right? I am merely resolving some final familial matters, I replied. I retrieved my mobile device, exited my office, and proceeded down the corridor. I pushed open the substantial glass portal leading into the conference room, and there they were, the 4 of them clustered around the expansive, polished granite table, appearing diminished and out of place. They presented a pitiable spectacle. My father, Marcus, appeared as though he had aged by 20 years in the preceding fortnight. His complexion was ashen, his shoulders stooped. He exuded an air of defeat. My mother, Sharon, was virtually unrecognizable. Her eyes were so swollen from weeping that they were nearly shut. Her hair was disheveled, and she was attired in a stained sweatsuit. The formidable matriarch was no longer present. Ashley was beside her, her countenance pallid and contorted with rage. Her ostentatious acrylic fingernails tapped a frenetic rhythm upon the granite surface. And Jamal simply resembled a sulky child, slumped in his chair, his gaze fixed upon the floor. I did not take a seat. I stood at the head of the table, placing my mobile device face down upon its surface. "You are creating a disturbance in my reception area," I stated. "This is a professional environment. You have 15 minutes. Proceed with your explanation. You cannot undertake this action," my mother, Sharon, finally whispered. Her voice was raw and hoarse, a mere shadow of the authoritative shriek she had previously employed to banish me. "Kesha, I implore you, that is our dwelling. You cannot simply divest yourself of it. It is the site of your upbringing." I regarded her, this woman who appeared so utterly broken and experienced absolutely no emotional response. "No compassion, no regret, no mother," I replied. My voice was calm, measured. It was the tone I employed in executive boardrooms. "It is no longer your dwelling. It has not been your dwelling for 3 years. It is my dwelling, a property asset vested within my trust. And you vociferously demanded that I vacate it. I am merely adhering to your expressed desires." "So what?" Jamal suddenly exclaimed, forcefully striking his palms flat against the granite conference table. The reverberation echoed throughout the sterile chamber. "So what if it legally belongs to you? You have no need for it." I redirected my gaze towards him. "Pardon me?" Aunt Manny informed us. He enunciated, his facial expression contorted with a jealousy far more potent than his prior apprehension. "She divulged everything to us. You are not merely performing adequately. You are a millionaire. You liquidated your insignificant technology enterprise. You are concealing all of this wealth from us." He rose with such alacrity that his chair scraped backward with a jarring sound. "You possess a luxurious penthouse in the city center. A penthouse, and you intend to cast us out onto the streets. You plan to seize our sole residence merely because mother became irate. What manner of callous individual are you?" The accusation hung suspended in the atmosphere. Ashley nodded vigorously beside him, her eyes wide with disbelief. My father appeared mortified, but my mother's expression underwent a transformation. The sorrow dissipated, supplanted by a chillingly new, calculated assessment. She regarded me with a different perspective, not as her progeny, but as a resource she had previously been unaware of. I allowed his pronouncements to settle. I permitted the accusation of my affluence to permeate the room. "So, this is the genuine underlying issue," I remarked, a slow, frigid smile spreading across my countenance. "It is not that I am exhibiting cruelty. It is not that I am devoid of empathy. It is that I am prosperous and I am unwilling to share." "You are absolutely correct," Jamal bellowed. "Ah," I observed, nodding deliberately. "I perceive. This is not about familial bonds. It is not about mother's displeasure. It is about the undeniable fact that I have triumphed. It is about the reality that I have achieved success while you continue to solicit handouts for speculative digital currency ventures." I gazed directly at him. My sibling, the favored one, the visionary, the one upon whom they all placed their hopes. It is profoundly galling, is it not, Jamal, that the unassuming, intellectually inclined girl, the uninteresting sister, the computer nerd, whom you and Ashley relentlessly mocked, has actually accomplished it. She is the millionaire. She is the one possessing the penthouse. And you are the one begging her for mere crumbs. This is the crux of the matter, is it not? You are simply resentful that my achievements surpass anything you will ever attain. Jamal's expression suggested he had been physically struck. He recoiled, his face draining of color, his mouth opening and closing inaudibly. Ashley, for her part, appeared incandescent with rage. You, Jamal stammered. Cease this behavior, both of you, my father finally commanded with a roar. He rose to his feet, his own chair scraping loudly against the floor. He looked at me, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with desperation. All right, you are correct, he shouted, his voice cracking. Is that what you wish to hear? We made an error, a profoundly foolish mistake. Your mother lost her composure. I was a coward. We failed you. Very well, we failed you. He took a ragged breath, bracing himself on the table with both hands. But this is our blood, Kesha. This is your mother. This is your father. You are correct. You are wealthy. You are a millionaire. You have won. Congratulations. So are you genuinely going to proceed with this? Are you truly prepared to cast your own parents out onto the streets? Are you going to relegate your mother to sleeping in a temporary shelter merely to make a statement? His raw desperation, the admission of his shortcomings, presented something novel. It hung in the air, thick with the scent of their defeat. My mother looked up, her eyes wide, sensing a potential avenue, an opportunity for clemency. I allowed the silence to persist for a considerable duration. I observed my father, the man who had been a passive accomplice, now reduced to supplication. No, I stated, my voice quiet. I will not permit you to sleep on the streets. My mother emitted a small, sharp gasp of relief. Her hand fluttered to her chest, and she glanced at my father, a faint flicker of hope rekindling in her eyes. Oh, Keisha, she whispered, my dear, I knew you would not. I would not, I interrupted, my voice retaining its frigid edge. Because I am not like you. I will not exhibit the same lack of compassion that you displayed. However, I am also not an imbecile. I reached into my briefcase, the one they had never previously encountered, and withdrew a single sheet of paper and a key. I am not, I stated, permitting you to reside in my dwelling. The transaction is finalized. However, I am also not leaving you devoid of resources. I have already made the necessary arrangements. I have secured a lease for a 2-bedroom apartment at the Midtown complex. It is clean, secure, and it represents the entirety of what you will receive. I have prepaid the rental fees for a period of 6 months. An apartment? Jamal uttered a harsh, bitter laugh. A 2-bedroom apartment. We inhabit a 4-bedroom residence, Kesha. You expect all 4 of us to be confined to some minuscule box in Midtown? I nearly smiled. The we? He still believed this was some sort of game? Oh no, Jamal, you are laboring under a misunderstanding, I stated, my voice soft. I looked at him, my gaze unwavering and stern. The apartment is not intended for you. Ashley's head snapped up. What? What do you mean? I mean the apartment is designated for mother and father, I clarified. You and Ashley are entirely on your own. You are a 30-year-old visionary, Jamal, a man of business. It is time for you to provide for your own spouse. You are no longer their dependent offspring. You are merely their burden, and you are certainly not my concern. You cannot. Ashley shrieked, her voice high-pitched and thin. You cannot simply cast us out. We are family. Where are we expected to go? I am uncertain, Ashley, I stated. Perhaps you can locate a guarantor for a lease agreement, but you are not my responsibility. I turned my back on them and focused solely on my parents. Mother, father, this is the proposition. You will accept the 2-bedroom apartment. The rental costs are prepaid for a duration of 6 months. Subsequent to that period, you will be required to manage your own finances. I am also establishing a direct deposit stipend. My mother's head, which had been buried in her hands, snapped upward. The weeping ceased instantaneously, replaced by a glint of the former avarice. A stipend? She whispered. How? How much? $1,500 per month. I stated, the nascent hope in her eyes vanished, supplanted by pure, unadulterated indignation. $1,500? She shrieked. $1,500? We cannot sustain ourselves on that sum. The payment for the Lexus alone is... The Lexus is no longer relevant. Mother, I interjected sharply, I have already informed you. $1,500 is allocated for sustenance. It is for the electricity bill. It is not for Neiman Marcus. It is not for Jamal's digital currency projects. And it is certainly not for a luxury automobile. It is merely sufficient for survival. But my appointments, our club memberships, she stammered. I cannot live in such a manner. I regarded my mother, this woman who had not held gainful employment for 3 decades, and I delivered my concluding statement. Then you will need to secure employment. A profound, heavy silence descended upon the conference room. Jamal and Ashley appeared on the verge of physical distress. My mother was weeping openly, but these were not the tears of anger I had witnessed at the gathering. They were the despondent, hopeless tears of complete and utter capitulation. My father, Marcus, simply gazed at the polished granite surface of the table. He looked at my mother, this woman whom he had enabled and appeased throughout his entire life. He looked at Jamal, his favored son, who was now glaring at me with pure, impotent animosity. He perceived the future he had architected for himself, a whining, dependent son incapable of supporting him, and a wife unable to confront reality. He turned his gaze back towards me. I had not moved. My expression was unreadable. There is one additional matter, I stated, my voice cutting through my mother's lamentations. I reached into my briefcase, the one they had never previously noticed, and produced another document. This is a legally binding agreement. It signifies a severance, a contract. What does it entail? My father inquired, his voice a dry rasp. It stipulates, I explained, that I will provide the apartment and the stipend, contingent upon a single condition. You will cease all contact with me henceforth, permanently. No telephone calls, no electronic correspondence, no appearances at my office or my residence. Should I receive even a solitary word from any of you, a request for additional funds, a complaint, an insult, the stipend will be discontinued. The lease agreement will not be renewed, and all arrangements will be terminated. I allowed the threat to hang suspended in the sterile atmosphere. Am I making myself understood? I propelled the document and a single, high-quality writing instrument across the table. My father did not scrutinize it. He possessed no need to. He comprehended that he held no further leverage. He picked up the pen, his hand trembling so violently that he could barely maintain his grip, and affixed his signature to the designated line. He then passed it to my mother. She studied it, her tears momentarily speckling the ink before she hastily inscribed her signature. Jamal regarded the document, then shifted his gaze to me. So that is it. You are effectively eradicating us. You are the one holding the eraser, Jamal, I remarked. I am merely wiping the slate clean. I rose to my feet and gathered my belongings. My meeting has concluded. Maria at the reception desk will provide validation for your parking. They rose as if compelled by an unseen force like automatons. My father slowly extended his hand and retrieved the single apartment key from the table. As they filed out of the conference room, my mother and father appeared like spectral figures. Jamal walked past me. He deliberately turned his body and forcefully impacted his shoulder against mine. A final, pathetic attempt at physical intimidation. I did not even flinch. I remained stationary, as steadfast as a stone monolith. I observed him rubbing his own shoulder as he followed his parents out, a vanquished prince departing a domain that had never truly belonged to him. The door clicked shut and I was finally alone. 6 months later, the air in Atlanta felt distinct, cleaner. I stood on the balcony of my penthouse, a glass of wine in my hand, observing the sunset painting the cityscape in hues of orange and purple. Well, well, Aunt Manny remarked, joining me and presenting a small appetizer. Look at you, the sovereign of all you survey. I smiled and leaned against the railing. It is merely a vista, Auntie. It is far more than a vista, my dear. It is a new perspective. She took a sip of her own wine. I encountered your father last week. My smile tightened. Oh, how is he? He is changed, she stated, choosing her words with care. He is employed part-time at the Home Depot on Piedmont, assisting in the garden section. He actually appeared more at ease. He mentioned that the physical labor was beneficial for him. And mother? I inquired, my voice neutral. Auntie chuckled. Your mother, Sharon, is now experiencing the realities of the world firsthand. She is serving as a receptionist at a dental practice. She is obliged to procure her own coffee and attend to other duties. The sheer horror of it all. I could not suppress a laugh. And Jamal and Ashley? Oh, them, Aunt Manny said, waving her hand dismissively. The last I heard, they relocated to Ashley's parental home. Apparently, her mother and father are not as impressed with Jamal's purported vision as our family was. They are compelling him to take out the refuse. I shook my head, a peculiar, distant sense of pity replacing the anger I had once felt. They had made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. And you, Auntie Maney said, turning towards me, her eyes brimming with pride. I heard about the Thomas Wilson Scholarship Fund, established to assist students in pursuing careers in data science. Your grandfather would be immensely proud, Keisha. You have utilized his legacy to forge a new one. It felt like the appropriate course of action, I replied, recalling the bright, ambitious students I had encountered at the inaugural luncheon. My phone vibrated on the patio table. A text message from Michael, the architect I had been acquainted with for a few weeks. Stuck in a meeting, I will arrive in 30 minutes. Do not commence the film without me. He was kind and intelligent, and when I shared news of my professional accomplishments with him, his sole response was, "That is astonishing. Does this imply you can assist me in deciphering this new data modeling software I am struggling with?" He was intrigued by my intellect, not my financial standing. Auntie Manny glanced at the text and smiled. He appears to be a commendable individual. He is, I confirmed. We stood there in comfortable silence, observing the city lights begin to twinkle. I contemplated the rage I had experienced at that party, the terror of abandonment, the stark finality of that ultimate confrontation. My mother's shriek, "Get out and never come back." I took a final sip of wine. It tasted of unburdened freedom. You know, Auntie, I remarked, for 32 years I made every conceivable effort to elicit their recognition, and they refused. Their lost child. No, I said, turning to her with a genuine smile. It was my profound advantage. Mother's furious command for me to depart, compelling me to act. It was the most beneficial decision she ever made for me. Keisha's narrative serves as a poignant illustration of the importance of establishing firm boundaries. For an extended period, she was perceived as an invisible financial resource for her family, shouldering the mortgage payments for her home while simultaneously subsidizing her brother's recurrent failures, all while enduring persistent disrespect. They misconstrued her inherent generosity as a manifestation of weakness. When her mother shrieked, "Get out!" she did not merely expel her daughter, she invalidated the legal contract that provided her with a home. Kesha's true strength resided not solely in her clandestine wealth, it was her definitive resolution to cease funding their disrespect. The most challenging verity is that, at times, one's biological family does not constitute one's true family. What was the definitive catalyst that made you realize your own family was never going to acknowledge your worth?